Hello and welcome back to JT on the Go. Today we are going to visit the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, which is a short drive from the port. One thing I must note, when we were driving here, we passed a sign that said no drone zone. That means you can't fly drones here. Kennedy Space Center is government property. These blue buildings are for Blue Origin. I remember visiting this place when I was little, but now so much has changed. To understand why the Space Center existed, we have to go back to World War II. One of the things the Nazis created during the war was the V-2 rocket, the world's first ballistic missile. Some of Germany's top scientists were involved with this creation. After Germany's defeat in World War II, the United States brought in German scientists, including Wernher von Braun, under Operation Paperclip. The US wanted them to develop weapons for the US Army. By 1945, the Cold War began to gather momentum. The Cold War was a 45-year nuclear arms race between communism and capitalism. The United States and its allies versus the Soviet Union and its allies. Part of this was the arms race of nuclear missiles, which are more powerful than the atomic bomb that was dropped on Japan. But as missiles reached higher altitudes, the conquest became space, thus beginning the space race. On October 4, 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite. The United States responded by investing billions of dollars in math and science. On January 31, 1958, von Braun and his team launched America's first artificial satellite, Explorer 1. By July 1958, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration was born. Cape Canaveral was selected as a place for rocket launches because of its geography. Several lakes distance launch sites from spectator grounds. After President John F. Kennedy challenged America to land on the moon before the 1960s ended, von Braun started the making of the Saturn V, which took America to the moon. On November 22, 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. NASA decided to give the Kennedy Space Center its current name in honor of President Kennedy. Before entering, you have to buy your ticket. The first place we're going to visit is the Apollo Saturn V Launch Center, which overlooks Space Launch Complex 39A and B. To get there, you have to take a bus, which is part of your entry fee. These days, a lot of people don't really agree with the idea of spending billions of tax dollars on space travel. Private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin were able to reduce the cost of space travel by making parts of their rockets fully reusable. Some of these poles on the bus station have decals that make them look like rockets. On the way, we will pass the vehicle assembly building. These buses were refurbished.
Active spaceport, where new things are happening every day. You never know what you might see.
The crawler that was used to take the Saturn V and the space shuttle to Space Launch Complex 39A or B is the largest land movable object created. It has a top speed of just 1 mile per hour. It will be used to take Artemis to Space Launch Complex 39B. 39A was given to SpaceX. Now we're here. Mission Control is located at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Part of the experience in the launch control is a show that makes it look like what it was when Apollo 8 was launched. Apollo 8 was the first manned flight to the moon and the first of the Saturn V. Due to the show being too long, I decided to post it separately from this video. Here is one of the real Saturn V's that is up for display. The second is displayed at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. The third is at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. This thing is indeed huge. The posters on the right are the Apollo mission badges. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong became the first person to walk on the moon. After Apollo 17, the Apollo program ended. Artemis 2 will be the first manned crew to orbit the moon since the Apollo missions. That will happen sometime in 2025. Space Launch Complex 39A is used for a variety of SpaceX missions. Crew Dragon, Falcon 9, and Falcon Heavy all use it. Falcon 9 rockets are also launched from Space Launch Complex 40. This is what the Apollo lunar module looks like. Here is the Apollo 1 memorial. On January 27, 1967, during a pre-flight test, a fire broke out in the capsule. All three astronauts on board, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, were killed in the flames. The cause was a spark that was accelerated by the oxygen. Today, all three astronauts are buried at Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. In this section, you can learn about each of the astronauts. Here's what the hatches of the capsule looked like. This is the crew arm leading up to the Apollo spacecraft. It is known as the Hero's Walk. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins walked on this same exact bridge.
Doing that thing for a week or more.
And the astronauts are right here buckled in. This is the insides of the lunar module. This is a model of the moon buggy that was used to explore the moon on Apollo missions 15 through 17. And here's a gift shop with NASA-themed items. Now we're heading back to the Kennedy Space Center. The next thing we're going to see is the Space Shuttle Atlantis exhibit.
Out of the waterways for turtles with their heads topped up, or you might spot an alligator or two.
The vehicle assembly building was created to assemble the Saturn V because it was one of the largest movable objects ever created. After the Saturn V, the VAB was used to assemble the Space Shuttle. Now it will be used to assemble Artemis. That place behind the forest is where they clean SpaceX rocket parts. Actually, they are cleaning a Falcon 9 first stage in there. On the Disney Wish Part 1 video, I filmed the Falcon 9 first stage on the drone ship when we were leaving Port Canaveral. While we were out on the cruise, they brought it here, where it gets cleaned and used again on other Falcon 9 missions. Research from Apollo helped in the creation of NASA's space shuttles. The space shuttle was America's first reusable spacecraft. Before we go in, we're gonna get lunch. Both shows in the Space Shuttle Atlantis exhibit will be separate videos. Here is the real Space Shuttle Atlantis. This is where it has been after its final flight back in 2011. I was here at Kennedy and remember seeing it on its last flight when I was little. Atlantis is on display with the payload doors open and the robotic arm out. There are some slides here. This is basically a simulator of the landing of the space shuttle. The slides represent the G-force on the space shuttle because it's a glider. If you want to do it again, you have to climb these stairs, or you can take an elevator that is behind the doors on the left.
You're good to go, buddy.
Hold on.
One fun thing they have is the shuttle launch experience, which is basically a ride, but it gives you an experience as close as possible to a space shuttle launch. I'm also going to make this a separate video because of its length. That was fun. Like the Apollo Saturn V Launch Center, The Space Shuttle Atlantis exhibit also has a memorial, but this one is for the crew of Challenger and the crew of Columbia. Here is what the patch of the Challenger crew looked like. All 7 crew members are buried at Arlington National Cemetery. This is the patch of the crew of Columbia. They are also buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Challenger only flew 10 missions. Endeavour was the space shuttle that replaced Challenger in 1992. The cause of the explosion was the failure of an O-ring in the solid rocket boosters. It leaked flames that eventually blew up the tank and the shuttle. The external tank carried fuel for the space shuttle, so that's why the tank ruptured when the flames came in contact. After this, a new solid rocket booster was created and it never failed. All of these crew members were lost on the way up. Columbia flew a total of 28 missions. Footage of the launch showed something fall from the shuttle. It appeared to be something that messed up one of the tiles that let heat in. During re-entry, the tiles were designed to be a lightweight, reusable heat shield. However, the tiles were not in place and the shuttle was not protected. The shuttle was spotted over Dallas, Texas as it split up. Wreckage was found in Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. This resulted in construction on the International Space Station being delayed. Ronald Reagan was president during the Challenger explosion. This is what he had to say about it. This is a piece that was recovered from the Challenger wreckage. It was brought here for permanent safekeeping. You can't really see it, but this is the front windows recovered from the Columbia wreckage. This is President Reagan at the Challenger Memorial. George W. Bush was the sitting president during the Columbia breakup. This is what he had to say about it. The space shuttle continued flight in 1988 after Challenger. After Columbia, the space shuttle continued flight in 2005. Lessons were learned by these accidents. This is a custom that we learn from these mistakes instead of repeating them. Here are all of the 6 space shuttles. They are identical. This is the gift shop for the Space Shuttle Atlantis exhibit. The last thing we're gonna see is the Gateway Spaceport. This is something new. This is where you can find some of the launch vehicles that can be seen today. On the ceiling is a Falcon Heavy core. SpaceX retired a Falcon Heavy core and put it in here for display. There are also 4 different simulators of what space travel would be in the future. These are fun. This is an old SpaceX capsule, Demo 1. Demo 2 consists of cargo capsules and crew capsules. Here is a Boeing Starliner capsule. Its first manned flight to the ISS was on May 17, 2024. It is very recent. This capsule is launched on top of a ULA Atlas V rocket. Falcon Heavy cores work the same way as the Falcon 9 first stage. Some Falcon Heavy cores were flown before as Falcon 9 first stages. For spaceport simulators, you can choose between Uncharted Worlds, Daring Explorers, Red Planet, and Cosmic Wonders. If you don't want to do the simulators, there is an observation bay that you can watch the simulators from. Here is the entrance to all 4 simulators. Here is a model of the Space Launch System, or SLS. In the corner is a model of the Delta IV Heavy rocket and the Vulcan. Both are ULA rockets. This is the capsule of the SLS Orion, or Artemis. The SLS flew its maiden flight as Artemis 1 on November 16, 2022. Artemis 2 will be Orion's first manned flight. This is going to be exciting. Here is the rocket garden, where you will find rockets from the past. Here is another souvenir shop with NASA-themed items. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and follow my Instagram account for more. This is JT on the Go signing off.